The WNBA's first season began in 1997, the longest-running women's professional basketball league in the USA. 1996 was important to the league's startup and attention to women's basketball as a whole. Women's college basketball was decently popular, with the UConn Huskies making a 35-0 championship run in 1995. The first attempt at a league in the US was actually the WBL, the Women's Professional Basketball League, in 1978, and it lasted until 1981. Women's basketball was interestingly in a peak and a low in the mid-90s. Globally, women's professional basketball would appear for the first time in the 1976 Olympics. The Soviet Union took the gold that first year, and most countries boycotted the 1980 Olympics for moral reasons. The U.S. women's national team would take home the gold in 1984 and 1988. They won bronze in 1992 and ultimately felt a little slighted by that, putting together the women's dream team for the 1996 Olympics being hosted in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. The U.S. women's national team would take home the gold for the next 7 straight Olympic meetings. This was exactly what the NBA and ABL founders had been waiting for: a surge in women's basketball interest, basis for their leagues, and elite competition for ultimate entertainment. In the beginning, the WNBA was just a thought, the specific thought from the overall phenomenon that was women's basketball. In 1996, the WNBA was still a thought project being worked out. Not only had there been other women's basketball leagues that folded, but there were leagues that never played a game, couldn't get enough teams, or simply couldn't pay for the quality of players at the time. Women's basketball had been gaining popularity through the years thanks to barnstorming and traveling teams, but a loss at the Olympics for the United States and some renewed interest around college basketball. There was an electric interest following the historic UConn run, 35-0, led by Rebecca Lobo in 1995. Women's basketball broke through the noise and gained some specific interest thanks to this University of Connecticut run, and Rebecca Lobo would end up being an important piece to the marketing and exposure for this new women's basketball league. In April of 1996, the NBA Board of Governors approves the concept of the WNBA, announcing the We Got Next campaign. July of 1996, the USA women's national team plays in its first group game against Cuba, which coincidentally included the WNBA's 3 main faces: Rebecca Lobo, Lisa Leslie, and Sheryl Swoopes. An immediate intersection for when preparation meets opportunity. The USA women's national team is considered to be one of the best women's basketball teams ever assembled, featuring Ruthie Bolton, Lisa Leslie, Rebecca Lobo, Dawn Staley, Katie Stedding, Carla McGee, Sheryl Swoopes, Katrina McClain, Nikki McCrae, Venus Lacey, Teresa Edwards, and Jennifer Azzi. There was a lot of hype surrounding this team, deservedly so, and they lived up to it, sweeping through the Olympics to win the gold. They put up a perfect display to increase intrigue and attention on the game they love. Most of them had been playing against each other for years, or knew in the upcoming years they would be in competing leagues. But here they all had the same goal: using the gold to catapult their sport specifically. Winning the gold with an almost ease, the global stage gave way to anticipated fans for professional women's basketball, and the WNBA was prepared to take advantage of this exposure. They played Australia, Ukraine, Cuba, South Korea, and Zaire. They beat Japan and Australia to take on Brazil in the gold medal round. They won the gold on August 4th, 1996, and 3 days later, Val Ackerman is named first president of the WNBA. The WNBA would not be the first women's professional basketball league in the US, but they wanted to be the first one to last. One of the earlier women's professional basketball leagues was the WBL, which was in existence from 1978 to 1981, featuring players like Nancy Lieberman and Ann Myers. The WBA would form in 1992, but would only last until 1995. Women's professional basketball leagues didn't have a good track record, so the WNBA knew what it was up against. While the WNBA was getting ready for its 1997 inaugural season, the ABL was already in the works to start in the winter season for the 1996-1997 season. The ABL only lasted 2 full seasons, 1996-1997, and the 1997-1998 seasons. The ABL got off the ground before the WNBA, and at least early on its quality of play was higher than their rival league. This was partly due to the league signing of a majority of the players from the 1996 U.S. Women's National Team. Although the WNBA was bankrolled by the NBA, the ABL offered higher salaries, boasting $250,000 in the late 90s. While it was technically going up against the WNBA, the ABL would actually play in the winter season. That meant viewership and attendance was going up directly against the NBA, and other male-dominated sports for that matter. The ABL had stars like Dawn Staley, Carla McGee, Katrina McClain, Nikki McRae, Venus Lacey, Teresa Edwards, and Jennifer Azzi. This definitely helped and increased the quality of play they were putting out, but it was no match for their competition, and they would fold in 1998, filing bankruptcy and leaving a lot of players hoping for a slot in the W, which would make it the only women's professional basketball league in the US at the time. So in October of 1996, they kept the summer schedule and mostly women's college rules for the WNBA. They would announce 8 teams to compete in the inaugural season for the WNBA: Charlotte, Cleveland, Houston, Los Angeles, New York, Phoenix, Sacramento, and Utah. The league would fill their teams with experienced professionals in an allocation draft ran by the league independently, as well as college players eligible for their 1997 draft and an elite draft that would allow each of the 8 teams to select 2 players from a pool of professionals. The allocation draft would see the first 16 players placed on their respective teams. The WNBA assigned each team 2 players. Mostly each team received a guard and a big, a center or a forward. The players were mostly pros that had some experience playing beyond college. You can get the idea of how they wanted talent to be evenly dispersed, as well as attempting to stir fan intrigue by keeping some players near their colleges and or hometowns. Lisa Leslie was assigned to the LA Sparks, attending USC in LA, and was a Southern California star. Rebecca Lobo was assigned to the New York Liberty, as she attended UConn and was a part of that 35-0 championship run. Sheryl Swoopes was assigned to the Houston Comets. She was a star from Texas Tech, still holding multiple records there. And of course, some players did end up on teams away from their colleges, but for the most part, this was for the fans and overall competition for the league as a whole. They would also hold an elite draft where the teams picked 2 players from eligible draftees that played professionally. The allocation draft would happen in January, the elite draft would happen in February, and the college draft would happen in April of 1997. And because the seasons would start in the summer, June 21st being their first game played, 1997 would fly by pretty quickly. The legacy of the 1996 women's basketball team is one that changed the landscape of the sport, setting a tone for everything that came after. 1996 was like a prelude to the league, as they observed the women's basketball landscape and got pretty lucky with their entrance and timing. As funny as it is to think about, even the ABL helped the WNBA in some way. Most obviously they were the other women's league, but more often than not, the WNBA encouraged their players to join the ABL. Almost maybe knowing the experience would make them appreciate the WNBA or take less as an understanding of the importance of simply making it. The ABL also offered higher salaries and ultimately folded. It gave the WNBA a lot of leverage in the form of salaries and other compensations. They probably ended up with players a little more desperate and willing to take a lot less than they were used to making. Out of the gate, the WNBA had leverage over the fans and its players. A determined business, proof that even the year they were just prepping to exist ended up in their favor, especially considering it was becoming the new norm to play overseas in the WNBA offseason.
You're Sheryl Swoopes, forward, Houston Comets.
How you doing?
You got some pretty good moves. You're fast anyway.
Thanks, I guess.
You know, your jump shot could be better. You're releasing the ball too soon. It's fixable with work.
Girl, where is your mama?
Mama can't help you a jump shot. Does he have a jumper?
He's only 11 months old.
I had a jump shot at his age.
We'll take a look at the 1997 season in a separate video, so thank you for watching. We've got more women's basketball information and history to share, so we'll catch you in the next one.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, player.